This is the prologue, or we can say Chapter 0, of A Game of Thrones. It takes place far beyond the Wall, where three members of the Night's Watch, Ser Waymar Royce, a young noble knight, Gared, an old experienced ranger, and Will, a stealthy former poacher, are investigating a group of wildlings, free folk. So while tracking a group of wildling raiders for days, eventually Will scouts ahead and discovers their camp. But something's wrong. There are no signs of life, even though he sees 8 people, men and women, lying still in the snow. Not a single movement. One woman was even up in a tree, half hidden, and still like a statue. Will reports what he saw, and Gared immediately believes the wildlings are dead, most likely killed by the cold. Gared, who had lost ears and fingers to past winters, speaks with grim authority. He says the cold sneaks in slowly, burns at first, then brings peace, like sinking into warm milk. It's how men die out here. But Ser Waymar doesn't buy it. He points out that the weather hasn't been cold enough to kill, not with the wall still weeping, which only happens when it's relatively warm. 8 grown people, dressed in furs and leather, with shelter and weapons, wouldn't just freeze. Still, he insists on seeing the camp himself. Will leads, Royce follows with his heavy warhorse, and Gared brings up the rear. As they ride deeper, the forest darkens, and fear creeps in. By the time they reach the ridge overlooking the camp, Will warns them again. "Something feels wrong," he says. Gared adds, "Can't you hear the darkness?" But the knight ignores them. Will sneaks ahead to the spot he had found earlier, but when he looks down at the camp, the bodies are gone. Everything else is the same. The camp, the fire pit, the axe lying by the rock, but the people have vanished. So Waymar joins him and laughs. "Your dead men seem to have moved," he says mockingly. Will is stunned. There's no way those corpses could just disappear. Still refusing to turn back, Waymar tells Will to climb the tree and look for any sign of fire nearby. Will obeys and begins to climb, even though a deep, gut-level fear is rising in him. Then, down below, Ser Waymar calls out, "Who's there?" The forest answers only with wind and rustling leaves. But Will sees it. A tall, thin shadow stepped out of the woods. Its flesh was white as snow, and it wore strange armor that shimmered with moonlight, changing color as it moved. In its hand was a sword like nothing Will had ever seen, thin, crystal-like, glowing faintly blue, and deadly sharp. So Waymar Royce stood his ground, voice shaking but defiant. "Come no farther!" He raised his sword, preparing to fight. For the first time, Will saw him not as a boy trying to act brave, but as a true man of the Night's Watch. The creature moved forward. Royce's sword trembled in his hands. The pale blade of the other slid toward him. They clashed, but instead of a normal sword fight, the sound of their blades meeting was horrible, high-pitched and painful, like an animal screaming. Royce blocked a few blows, but he was pushed back, one step at a time. Around him, more pale figures appeared, 3, 4, 5 of them, all watching, silent and motionless, like shadows made of ice. They didn't move to help. They were just there, surrounding him like ghosts. Royce fought back, panting, his sword now crusted with frost. He swung harder and harder, but the cold was too much. Then he slipped. His parry came too late. The other's sword cut through his armor under the arm. He screamed as blood poured out, steaming in the cold. He touched the wound with his glove. It came back, soaked red. Then one of the others spoke. The sound was like ice cracking, sharp and unnatural. Will couldn't understand the words, but the tone was mocking.
Royce roared in anger. "For Robert!" he shouted, and swung with all his strength. But the other blocked easily. When their swords clashed, Royce's blade shattered into 100 icy pieces, sharp as needles. He dropped to his knees, covering his eyes and screaming. Then, as if some invisible signal had been given, all the others stepped forward together. Their pale swords rose and then fell, silent, brutal. They cut through his armor like it was cloth. It was quiet, cold slaughter. Will shut his eyes, unable to watch. He could hear faint laughter, sharp and chilling, like icicles cracking. When he opened his eyes again, the ridge was empty.
He waited, frozen in the tree, until the moon had moved far across the sky. Then, with aching limbs, he climbed down. Ser Waymar's body lay in the snow, one arm stretched out. His cloak was shredded. He looked so young now, just a boy, dead. Will found the remains of Royce's sword nearby. It was splintered and broken like wood struck by lightning. He grabbed it. Maybe Gared was still waiting. He had to show them proof. This broken sword would be enough. But when he stood up, Ser Waymar Royce was standing too. His body was torn, his face mangled, one eye blinded by a shard of sword. But the other eye was wide open and glowing icy blue. It saw him. Will dropped the sword in terror. Then cold hands touched his cheek and wrapped around his throat. So now what will happen to Will? Will he survive or not? Let's see in next chapter.